Hallo, ek is Iti. Welkom by my kanaal waar ons als saam doen. As requested, today we take a look at the word MOS in Afrikaans. How and where to use MOS. The word MOS as a noun in Afrikaans means moss, the green stuff that you see growing on trees and plants and in wet areas. That is the noun MOS or moss in English. The second use of mos as a noun in Afrikaans is what is referred to as must in English, and in that context it refers to grape juice before and during fermentation. Now we get to the meaning of mos. I think that you are most interested in, and it is the meaning of mos where it is not a verb, where it's used in conversation. This is a staple of the South African people. It's not only used in Afrikaans anymore. A lot of English-speaking people use mos in their conversations as well, in the same format, in the same way as we use it in Afrikaans, but they just substitute it into the English sentence. It's not everyone, it just depends on who you're talking to and where they are in the country. But mos has become sort of a borrowed word in South African English in some places. Now, mos, when used in this non-noun context, it means indeed, as you already know, or of course, as you know, and it implies that you have had previous knowledge of whatever is being spoken about, or and it accentuates whatever the person is saying. So let me show you what I mean by this. Mos, indeed, as you know, of course, as you know. Remember that this is a transcribed version, as we call it in Afrikaans, omskryf. So it's freely translated. Mos cannot be fully directly translated with all of its glory to English. So this is a approximate meaning or approximate phrases that we use to try and explain what we mean by using mos. That is also why a lot of people that speak English might use mos in South Africa directly in the English sentence, because there is only one mos, and you cannot capture the full potential of mos in other words in, for instance, English or a different language. Mos is just mos, and it's uniquely Afrikaans. But at the top you'll see there's a phrase, as you know, and then in Afrikaans it is soos jy weet. So we do have a phrase, as you know, and that is literally soos jy weet, and it's commonly used in Afrikaans. Mos is just a little bit extra, a little bit different, accentuates and implies. So let's look at the bottom example there. This is the first one I'll give you. This is the word order. You'll see there's a subject, then the first verb, and then you have mos after that subject and first verb. Then you have mos, and then the rest of the sentence follows. It is the explanatory words or an object. So in this case, sy is mos baie slim, which means she is very intelligent, as you know, or as you already know, or as it is known. So it would just imply that this is maybe something that is known previously. You could say sy is baie slim, which means she is very intelligent. Then there's no implication of people having known you, just stating a fact. But when they say sy is mos baie slim, it means, she is very intelligent, as you should know, or as it is known, or as you already know. So it's something that's even more accentuated, more factual, and it's said like you should know this. Alrighty, now we look at this example, the first example. So we have the Afrikaans, jy weet, which means you know. At the bottom you'll see there's the English. Jy weet, then it is you know. Now if somebody says jy weet mos, then it implies that you know this already. So it's jy weet, you know, jy weet mos. And in English, the closest that I could get to a translation is then, you do know. To accentuate that you do know this, or you already know this. Now, there's an example here in the middle. which is what people do in South African English when they use mos in that sentence. In Afrikaans, it would be jy weet mos. And then the English go for you know mos. You know mos. I mean, at this point, they do, I think, have a good grasp of Afrikaans also. But jy weet mos and you know mos, same thing, just two different languages. And mos just goes from the Afrikaans to the English. Next one, the Afrikaans. Hy is altyd laat, which means he is always late. You'll see that there at the bottom. Hy is, subject verb, altyd laat, explanatory phrase. He is always late. Then we go for hy is mos. So subject, verb, and then mos, altyd laat. And then we look at the bottom, there are some clarification on what this means in English or what this could possibly mean. He is always late, and then when mos comes into the picture, it is he is of course always late. Or as you know, he's always late. So this implies that this is a habitual thing. You probably already know this, or you should already know this. So it's more than one thing that it can imply when it's used in a sentence like that. Afrikaans. Jy kan nie so praat nie. In English, that is, you can't talk that way. Now, we put mos into the sentence, and it is jy kan mos nie so praat nie. And now, at the bottom, you'll see the English, you can't talk that way. Now, if mos comes into play, then it can be, of course you can't talk that way. Or, you obviously can't talk that way. Or, as you know, you can't talk that way. Now, mos would almost encompass all of it. It's like a combo. It's not just the one or the other. It's uniquely mos. So, jy kan mos nie so praat nie. And it implies all of those below and even more. Even more. Jy dink nie voor jy praat nie, which means you don't think before you speak. Now, if you want to add mos, then jy dink mos nie voor jy praat nie. Jy dink mos nie voor jy praat nie. Okay, so when we do use this in conversation, we won't accentuate it like I did in the first example or the first sentence now. We'll just say, jy dink mos nie voor jy praat nie. So the accent's a bit different. And then if you want to transcribe that to English, it'll be you don't think before you speak. And then, as you know, you don't think before you speak. It's like implying, as you know, you never think before you speak. And of course, don't think before you speak. You, of course, don't think before you speak. So it's a fine line, it's an intricate balance. But I hope after all these examples, you have a better feel of what mos implies. Last example for mos. Afrikaans. Dit is nie te duur nie. It isn't too expensive. That's the English. Now, if you want mos, dit is mos nie te duur nie. Implying that it really isn't that expensive, or you already know it's not that expensive, or as you know, it's not that expensive. But I still can't grasp mos fully by transcribing it. But I'm trying my best. And then at the bottom you'll see, as you know, it isn't too expensive. Of course it isn't too expensive. It isn't too expensive, right? So this one, dit is mos nie te duur nie, is actually, it can be a statement or a question in Afrikaans. In this case, it's written as a statement, but it can also be a question, which is why I said at the bottom, it isn't too expensive, right? So it's accentuating, also implying, also sort of saying you should already know this. And I think with mos especially, it's one of those things, the more you listen to Afrikaans speakers, the more you listen to Afrikaans conversations, watch video, watch series, audio books, anything you can get your hands on. The best would obviously be a conversation with Afrikaans speaking people in a group. That'll be nice so that you can see how they interact with each other. Because mos, that's the best way to learn mos. And people use mos everywhere. They really milk mos. Thank you so much for watching my MOS video. Did this video help you to understand MOS better? If so, please let me know in the comment section. If you have any other suggestions for topics that you would like to know more about when it comes to Afrikaans, please place those suggestions in the comment section and I will do my best to make videos which will help you understand those topics better. Have an awesome day and I'll see you in the next video.